only been a week since we talked to you last, but you kind of moved out of that defensive boot camp phase at this point, and then maybe what are things looking like on the floor?
Yeah, the first 3 days for us, we're trying to install all our defense. We're really focused on coaching the defensive end of the floor. It's not that we're not playing offense. We do have a ball in our hands. We take the rims off the goals and that type of thing, but it is really focused on just one end of the floor in terms of what we're emphasizing. Since then, it's traditional practice. We're trying to put the whole thing together, trying to clean, put it together, then come back and clean up the parts, and then put it together again. And that's kind of, in a big picture sense, kind of the process we go through from now until the first game. The guys have been great. The approach has been what you want it to be. Now everybody should have a good approach right now in college basketball. I'd imagine everybody's working hard. Everybody's excited for the season. The thing that we preach every day is, can you sustain it throughout? And I think the best way to do that is just by thinking about what's in front of you today. But so far, I've been really pleased with our guys.
What's your goal in this second phase as you're transitioning out of that boot camp?
Yeah, this week is just trying to put it together. It's so much different now, Keith, than it was when I first got into coaching. We have the whole summer with them. Only 4 hours a week, but then you have the whole fall for 4 hours a week. You couldn't do that kind of stuff years ago. So it's not as if we're introducing concepts for the first time. So we're kind of back to those offensive concepts we've been working on this summer, making sure that there's a different sense of urgency about the things that we're demanding on that side of the ball. And then we're adding, as we go, we're adding actions. We're adding out-of-bounds plays. We're adding sideline out-of-bounds plays. We're working on situations. So for the first time now, we get the chance to work with them every day. So you're kind of taking those foundational things and expanding on them and then adding some of the details.
How does having a guy like Adu, who was here as you're getting your culture set and situated here, having him still here able to help these new guys coming in?
It's been really neat. I have 3 graduate assistants. It's really neat because Jalen Stowe is in his 3rd year with me as a grad assistant because he spent a year with me at UNC Greensboro. Now, I coached against him in the Southern Conference. He played at Mercer. So he's not one of my former players, but this will be his 3rd year with me. And so he has a really good understanding of just what goes on in our program and what's expected because he's now been with me, for 3 years. But what's been really special is 2 GAs that have played for me. And I think one of the neatest things in coaching is when you can hire former players. So now Malik Massey, who played for 4 years for me at UNC Greensboro, is a first-year grad assistant. And then Abdul, as you mentioned, played for us here last year at UC. So I have guys now on the floor that have actually played through me and been through what these guys are going through. And that adds a lot to our program, and it's also really special for me personally.
You talked last week about some of the improvements the returning guys have made, some of the pieces you added. I know it's still really early, but do you ever find yourself divvying up minutes in your head yet, or figuring out how am I going to get this guy on the floor some, or where am I going to put this guy?
Yeah, I think as you're going through preseason practice, you're trying to figure out the combinations. You're trying to figure out roles and where guys fit in. That's a process that you're going to go through, but I hate to say it. No, I don't know who's going to start the first game. No, I don't know who's going to be in what specific role. These guys are going to dictate that a lot with what they've done leading up to now and what they'll do between now and our first game. And the main thing we'll do is give guys opportunities. We're going to give guys so many opportunities to kind of figure out where they fall in the landscape of playing time and roles and starting lineups and that type of thing.
Walk us through what it's been like now in year 2 from this time now compared to a season ago. How do you feel like this team has progressed in that time span?
Yeah, I think we're so much further along today than we were on this day last year. And I've said that a bunch. I don't think that guarantees any kind of different results or success because there's still a lot of work to do. But if you stop today and said, okay, where are we today versus where are we a year ago, we're night and day difference. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. The continuity, having 7 returning guys that have invested and bought in and had a great offseason, that has a big impact on our program. I think we added a lot with 6 guys with talent, length, and 3 guys with a lot of experience. And then the continuity on our staff, right? I mean, there's a lot flying around. When you're in year 1, you're just kind of figuring some things out. That's just the nature of it. Our feet are firmly planted on the ground now. So we're much further along in every facet of the program than we were this time last year. But it doesn't matter if we don't kind of keep doing the work.
You talked about Jeremiah's maturation, his mental toughness, and how that's come along. What does that look like, and how has that trickulated into the other guys?
Yeah, I just think it's been a different look in terms of day-to-day focus and day-to-day purpose. I mean, Jeremiah's always worked hard. I mean, anybody who's watched him play, he plays hard. He plays with passion and energy. I mean, that's still there, but his purpose is just seems to be a little different. His focus seems to be a little different, and I think when the upperclassmen in your program, that have had success, that have a resume, when they elevate in those areas, I think it forces others around them to elevate as well, and I hope that continues as we go through the preseason.
You mentioned being farther along in every facet. Speaking in general, how do you feel on the recruiting side of things?
I'm excited about recruiting. It's been great. I always, when people ask about recruiting, you always go, well, don't say anything that you can't say for NCAA rules. So you're not allowed to talk about specifics unless guys are signed. But yeah, we're excited about some of the things that have been going on, and hopefully some of the things that'll keep going on.
Do you feel the benefits of being a full year in the same way with your players that you do on the recruiting trail?
Yeah, everything. Once again, listen. We haven't arrived anywhere, Justin. I always tell the guys, like, we had a couple good days of practice. We didn't cross the finish line now. So I'm not saying we've arrived, or I think we're at some great place, because it's about today. But when your feet are firmly planted, right, and you feel like they're planted, and you understand your surroundings, and people have gotten into roles on the staff, and you're kind of firing on all cylinders in a different way, everything is going to be better from an operational standpoint, and recruiting does feel better in that sense too.
I guess from not speaking on specifics, but it was an up and down, up debut campaign for you. However, it seems like there's still a wide belief in you and your system and your culture and what you and your staff are building here. Do you sense that as you're out there on the trail?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of momentum for our program right now. I think there's a ton of momentum for our athletic department. I think there's a ton of momentum for our university, and people sense that and feel it. And what's really neat is like you don't have to talk about it. Like people bring it up to us. We kind of talk about our program and what we're doing every day. It's like kind of this movement, this vibe, and I think it's real and it's genuine because it is. And sometimes it's hard to put a finger and explain exactly what you mean by that, but I think people are starting to know.
Not to single somebody out, but Jarrett, it seems like he's made some strides this offseason from last year. I know he did the thing overseas. Just what have you seen from him in terms of coming off that injury and some of the development progress he's made?
Boy, Jared Hensley, our day-to-day approach this offseason was in line with the kind of way that I want it to be in terms of guys' commitment to their game, guys' commitment to their bodies, and doing it in a everyday sustainable way. Jared Hensley might work as hard in all facets of development as any player I've ever coached. I kept saying, for years, he's the hardest freshman I've ever seen work, because he's got some time to go, and then maybe the hardest. I've had him for, this will be year 3. I've never had a player that was more committed than Jared Hensley day to day, and it's neat because he's starting to see some results from that. He's starting to see results in practice and in our live play. He's really improved, and I'm excited to see what happens with him as we go through the preseason.
In terms of the leadership role in this locker room for you guys, you bring guys, David, Micah, Rob, Landers. Talk about what that leadership role and what that has been like in the locker room so far this season.
Yeah, we have an older team, an experienced team. And so there's a lot of guys that are going to have opportunities to lead this team in their own way, in their own natural, genuine way. I think guys like David DeJulius, John Newman, Jeremiah Davenport, Micah Adams-Woods, like Odie Iguam, like you're talking about guys that are not just older and experienced, but have been in our program. I think it's important that they lead themselves every single day in a way that also leads the team. And if they can do a little more than that, I think you really kind of have something. But, we have a bunch of guys, and I might have missed a couple. We have a bunch of guys that are older, experienced, and have been in the program for a year. That gives you a chance to have some really good leadership within the team. And then, you mentioned some of the guys that come in with that same experience, even though they haven't been here. So, you hope that you have a really cohesive group that understands what it's about to win because of that experience and then some of that continuity.
I had shared this last week, but having a guy on your staff like DeMar Johnson who played here, played at a high level here, won awards here, all that stuff, how beneficial is that as you're building this here with these guys, but also out there on the recruiting trail trying to get guys to come in?
It's DeMar's value is so great. It's hard to quantify in one way. Number one, he's done here what we're trying to do. He's experienced it here. He was on one of the greatest teams, ever, Cincinnati. And obviously Kenyon breaks his leg, so you don't know what would have happened in the tournament. But I mean, that's one of the greatest teams in the history of this program. And obviously there's some that have won championships, and I'm not taking away from them. So he's done here what these guys are trying to do. He's done it personally, right? He's been an elite player. He's gone on to be a first-round draft pick. So he's done what they're trying to do as a team, been a part of that, and then he's done it himself. I mean, that has just immense value in terms of his ability to relate and to encourage and inspire these guys. And then he has value in so many other ways. I mean, his connection to the community, his connection to the program has been invaluable. His understanding of what it takes every day for these guys to work to improve in terms of player development, which is his title, has been invaluable. He's really helped us in year one understand the landscape of where we are. Again, in year one, there's so many things you don't know. Some of it you're just trying to figure out who's who and what's what. And DJ, because he's been in the program in different roles, right? He was a player, then he was also here as a grad assistant for Coach Cronin. So those are just some of the ways that he's impacted us, but it's a long list. So we've been really pleased with what he's done here over the last year.
Speaking of great teams, got a little reunion this weekend. Why was that important for you in this program to bring some of those 92, 93 guys back here?
Yeah, we've said this since we got here. I mean, one of the greatest parts about coaching and playing in Cincinnati is you're a part of now one of the greatest programs in the history of our game, and you can't argue that. That's a fact. And so we're going to embrace that. We're going to celebrate that. And we've talked about that, for a year and a half now. You have a 92 team that goes to the Final Four, and a 93 team that goes to the Elite Eight. I mean, and it's a 30-year reunion. I guess because of COVID and all that. So we tried to combine them together because it hadn't been done. And it's a 30-year reunion, and that's important. It's important for them. I tell teams all the time, if you do something really special, you'll come back together every 5 years and celebrate it. And I know that from being a part of the 2005 national championship team. And that's something that you'll do for the rest of your life. It's important that those guys, because of what they did here, come back and are recognized and have an opportunity to get back and connect. So we're thrilled. We're going to celebrate them. We're also going to make sure that we make it about them and nothing else. It's not going to be about media coverage. It's not going to be about trying to take from them in any way. It's going to be about them spending some time together and us celebrating what they did 30 years later.
Any other questions for Coach? Thank you.